first?
I'll go, sure.
All right.
Audrey Snyder at The Athletic. Manny, how have you kind of seen that middle linebacker spot develop so far? Has anybody stood out?
Well, one, it's competition, which I think is what spring's all about. And you have guys that are capable, you know. So I've been pleased to watch Tyler Elston continue to grow, feel more comfortable, you know, in just playing defense and not just middle linebacker is different because you're the guy that's got to make all the calls. I mean, everyone's got to turn to you. You got to get everybody lined up. So there's not just the actual what happens after the snap, it's before the snap. So I thought the way Tyler's been doing it, I think Kobe King is getting better every day. And really, I anticipate this being a battle, a competition, where both guys are getting better through the spring. They'll improve in the summertime when we can't be around them, and that'll go on in training camp. But I have been encouraged from what I've seen since we started spring practice.
Manny, can you talk about the challenge of coming in new with this many holes on the defense to fill? Does that kind of add more on your plate as you try to get adjusted to the team and guys?
I think that's just the nature of college football. You know, college football, you lose guys to graduation or to the NFL, and that's all part of it. And I think that's what I think as a coach. I think you like that challenge, but what doesn't change is the standard. And I think that's the important thing is that the names are the same, but the expectation of how they need to play does not change. And I think our guys are excited about that, and they want to step up. That's why they were recruited to Penn State, because they knew when the great player that was older than them left, it would be their time. And we have some guys that it's now their time.
So in general, how are things going? Are people getting up to speed with what you're putting out
They
there?
have been. I think we've been playing faster every day, which makes sense. What stands out to me about our guys here is they really want to do right. When you challenge them in a certain way, they respond in a player-led way the next practice. And so there's been a couple things where, you know, one practice we didn't like the way we did this. You make a point to the guys, and you can tell in the locker room they want to fix it. And so as a coach, you're getting ready to kind of emphasize that the next day, and the players are already emphasizing it for you. So we do have good leadership on the defense, but overall, in their heart, they want to be great and they want to do right.
Manny, you were around the team at the bowl, but I'm not sure you could absorb everything about all of your personnel. So are there any guys that maybe you didn't see a lot of at the bowl game that really have flashed in spring that have been a little bit, not surprising, but kind of flashed for you?
Well, let's see. I mean, but we actually, most of the guys we had at the bowl are the guys we have now because of the opt-outs, right? So, but to your point, I mean, I was still learning names and numbers. So, you know, what I try to do is the bowl was the bowl. To me, the bowl was more about getting familiar with the program, how we practice, how we work, more cultural type stuff. I didn't want to make a lot of impressions on the players themselves. I want to get everybody kind of a clean slate, get to know who they were in winter workouts, and then now really through the 7 practices we've had up to this point, really let that define them. And I think they've enjoyed that, you know, because every kind of spring ball is always about everybody starts at zero again, and you rebuild it every year anyway.
Which guys are standing out as leaders so far here in the start of spring? Which guys on the defense?
Well, Jair Brown, absolutely. Just not just vocally, but he certainly is a great vocal leader. But again, if you want a guy as a coach that you're honored to coach, it's this guy. I mean, he just does everything the way you want it to do. He just, you know, if you had 11 of them, you wouldn't need a coach, right? Jonathan Sutherland has been fantastic. Not just transitioning to Sam linebacker, but just, again, the way that he leads, the way that he works. And then even a guy like P.J. Mustafa, who's still not even practicing. But, man, you feel his presence every day. And he makes sure of that, you know. So he makes sure that he's on the defensive lineman, he's on the defense in general. So we really, and there will be more by the time we get to September. But I feel like on all 3 levels we've got good leadership.
And you're from Pittsburgh, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about Daquan Hardy and what he's added to the team. What do you think about him so far?
Well, Daquan has had a lot of success playing that nickel position, which he's shown again during spring ball. He's got great feet. He's got great lateral quickness, so he can kind of, especially when you have that matchup on a slot. Slots are normally kind of quick, short area quickness type guys. Daquan's got all of that. He can also has long speed as well. So in terms of his ability to play some bump and run coverage and make things hard on wideouts, I think he loves that. I think that's a skill that we love. And so I think he's been progressing every day throughout spring.
Have you enjoyed getting rid of the head coaching responsibilities that used to be in your life? Is there something nice about sort of having the singular nature of just being a defensive coordinator?
I think I'll go a step further, just being a linebacker coach and getting to have a room again. and getting to have guys that you get to really pour into every day and teach. Because ultimately, as a coach, that's what you are. You're a teacher. So I'm blessed with the guys that I have. I've got great guys in the linebacker room. I'm really fortunate of the defensive personnel in general, not just of their talent, but just who they are. So you get back in the room and you get back to that relationship of being a teacher, and you try to do that as a head coach. It's just there's just a barrier. It's just not the same. So that part's been has been nice.
Coach, you mentioned the
mentioned
standard.
Daquan Hardy.
What is
bump and
the,
run coverage.
No, sorry. We'll get to both.
Okay.
You mentioned the standard of players that have been here before. Dan Connor is one of those guys. What's
Yeah.
been the flow of ideas and just talking about that linebacker room that you guys have been able to bounce off each other? Because there's kind of a lot of holes to fill.
Yeah, and Dan is sharp, not just in terms of linebacker play, but his experience as a defensive coordinator. I mean, he really understands scheme, understands the big picture defensively. So as we've been, he's been learning what we're doing scheme-wise, that nuance, to be able to talk back and forth, to talk to me about what he sees in our guys, and to be able to help out in that. What a valuable resource. I will say this too, it's like anything else. Everyone likes to talk about the coordinator. We have a phenomenal defensive staff here. I mean, the guys, the on-the-field coaches, are analysts off the field. And one thing that Coach Franklin's allowed us to do is we've got a great off-the-field staff now, which you're seeing more and more of in college football, even down to our GAs. So makes it really easy because, again, it's not about one guy, it's about a staff. And to me, we've got a good team in that room.
You mentioned Daquan Hardy and bump and run coverage. I just want to ask you, what do you believe in the secondary as far as press coverage, zone? What do you feel like your strength as a play caller?
Well, you have to have the ability to do more than one thing, right? But in college football, you've got to play some man coverage. It's just part of the show now. But you can't play everything all the time. No coverage stops everything. If you want to know my philosophy, the best coverage is pass rush. And that's been a big point we've been trying to make throughout camp, trying to get our sack numbers up, our tackle for loss numbers up, and our disruption numbers up. So you got to be able to mix coverages because every coverage has an inherent stress. So there's a time and place for everything. What I'm trying to do right now throughout the spring is learn what our guys do best, and then we can build our package around what our guys do best.
Manny, you mentioned that pass rush. James said Adiza Isaac is a guy who's consistently flashy, coming off an injury. What have you seen from Adiza? Because he's a guy that was expected to really break out last year.
Yeah, I mean, he just has some things he can't teach, in terms of athleticism, his ability to bend, turn the corner, his length, so the way he can kind of get his hands on offensive linemen. We're excited to see him grow in his role every day. And the more he's around, the more that makes our entire team. He makes our corners better. And that to me, great players affect other guys that they play with, and I think Adiza's got a chance to be that guy.
Manny, what have you thought of Curtis Jacobs so far? How do you anticipate him kind of fitting into your scheme?
I think he's at home at will. I think he's made for the spot. I think it fits his athleticism. He's an intelligent guy, understands what's going on, can cover, can rush, and can run. So to me, when you're looking for what you want a will linebacker to be, he kind of ticks all those boxes.
Smith Filbert, obviously a great performance in the bowl game. What have you seen from him this spring?
Well, same thing. Guys like Smith, it gets back to what I talked about with the linebackers. You got Smith, you got Tarburton, you got Amin, you got a young guy like Townley. You got competition. What you kind of want everybody out of their comfort zone. You don't want anybody feeling about a bowl game or last year, good or bad, whatever it is. Everyone starts at scratch. And there are some techniques that we're doing a little bit differently with our defensive ends. And so you want to see how they respond as they get more comfortable with that. It's too early to judge anything. We've only been in full pads for 5 days. Practice for 7, full pads for 5. So Friday night will be big. It's our first scrimmage. And you kind of you check the production, see who steps up. So I'm as interested as you are to see how those guys do.
Jamie, you told us last week about the night that Sutherland. You guys are trying to bring him up to speed on Zoom. What has that been like, and how have you kind of gotten to know him despite him not being here?
Yeah. We have a group of freshmen, really all of our incoming freshmen. We're trying to push knowledge on them so that when they get here in the summer, it's not just hearing it for the first time. My belief is that you get all these guys, you don't think about redshirting anybody. You try to get your best football team with the guys you have available. So we don't want them. I mean, we've been telling a guy like Denai, or could be, and there's others that are at all spots, hey, you're only 15 days behind the guys that are here on campus right now. We can overcome 15 days. So that's us as coaches to have meetings with them, to send them materials. And I've been impressed with all of our guys that will come this summer, that they've just been soaking it up like a sponge.
Along those lines, James had mentioned Abdul Carter as well,
Yeah.
and you touched on a lot about the stuff about coming in. But where do you guys project him kind of playing? Because he seems like a big physical kid.
He is a big physical kid, and big physical kids usually do well in the middle of your defense. So probably start off at a middle linebacker type spot. A guy like Keon Wiley, can be right next to him as a will. We're going to do everything we can to push those guys to be ready to play. Now, if they're not ready, we won't put them in before they're ready. But again, I think all the young guys we have coming in, we're going to try to push them, get them to where they can function, where they're here in August camp, not thinking too much. But we want to see if they can help us. And then one other point too. We look at a season. We talk about this as a staff. We play 5 and have a bye. And who might be making plays in October, November may not be the same guy as in September when you start your season at West Lafayette. So, you got to plan for 2 ways. You got to plan for the season opener, and you got to plan for October. You got to plan for November. So I think all that matters.
Last question.
At Miami, you guys have used the transfer portal quite a bit and had a lot of success with it. How would you say kind of your experience with it, your philosophy, how is that aligned maybe with James's, and what areas do you think you maybe need to target here on this defense via the portal?
I think philosophically, we're very much aligned. The first thing you have to do is you have to find a need that you feel like you have to fulfill outside bringing in high school kids. Second, you have to make sure that it's in a way where the number one thing is locker room morale. That if we bring in this guy, the team will understand why. And if you look at the experience last year at Penn State with AK and Congo, they understood that. And those guys transformed how they played up front a year ago. So you got to find the right fit. I think success in the portal, you have to know why they're leaving. You have to know what they're looking for, because you don't want to bring a problem into your program. So there's a lot of homework that has to be done. We did have good success at Miami with it, but it's just not. It's not fantasy football. You just can't get anybody that did something somewhere. You got to make sure that the right person. You're not just bringing in a player. You're bringing in a person, and they got to be able to match our culture and want to be successful here.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thanks,
Thank you all
Manny.
so much.
Appreciate it.
See you Friday at the scrimmage.
I'll be there.
Get the good luck.